How's it going, everybody? Culture Reviews here with a video game review of Resident Evil 4 Remake. No, I apologize if my gameplay is a little bit too dark. HDR is a fucking bitch, and when I try to record gameplay, it was going off the HDR that my TV uses, and it's making the gameplay slightly dark. Hopefully, you can make out what's going on, and you can see the gameplay and judge for yourself if you want to get the game. But this is my review of the Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, love Resident Evil, been with the franchise since I was a kid, back when, while my friends had a PS2 and had a GameCube. I was stuck with a PlayStation 1 for a little bit, and, I played Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I'm a big fan of Resident Evil, and I've been with the franchise for a very, very long time, from when I was a kid till now. And with the recent remakes they've been doing, with Resident Evil 2 Remake being a fantastic game and Resident Evil 3 being a pile of shit, which I'll get into why. As a fan of Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 3 is my second favorite Resident Evil game, Nemesis is. It just felt like a ripoff. The game was too short, it cut out a ton of content. It could have been so much more than what it was, but it just felt like they rushed it out, and it was a very big disappointment for me. And with all the content that they cut out missing and nothing really expanded upon, and just a game being like a 6 hour long game for $60 is not really well justified. And to me, it felt like a fucking ripoff. But this video isn't about that. This video is about the newest remake in the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil 4. Now, the original Resident Evil 4 is regarded by many Resident Evil fans as the best Resident Evil game ever made. It was the one that pushed the franchise forward, and I am part of that group. I do think that OG Resident Evil was the best Resident Evil game ever made. It revolutionized not only the Resident Evil franchise for pushing it forward, but also video games as a whole, with it inspiring games like Gears of War. It was a very influential game. And with a game like that, it's going to be hard to remake it, because not only do you have a ton of diehard fans who love that game, but how do you remake a perfect game? Well, Capcom attempted it. And we're going to see today if they did a good job. I'm just going to say it right now anyway. This remake is perfect. This game is perfect. I love the Resident Evil 4 remake. All the changes they did, the tone change, the gameplay changes, some of the story tweaks, even the cut content to expand on certain scenes, all feels very warranted and very justified. But let's get more into detail into that. So, Resident Evil 4 Remake. What did they change? Well, let's talk about the gameplay. They added new mechanics into the game to make it feel more modern. The OG Resident Evil game mostly relied on a tight camera, and when you shoot, you had to stop in place and shoot your gun. So you had to pick where you wanted to shoot. You couldn't move and shoot. This game changes that. Of course it does. It's a modern Resident Evil game. So you gotta move and shoot, which is a very different experience when you're in the same location as Resident Evil 4, I'm not gonna lie. But what makes this game great is the two new major things they added to it. Crouching and the knife mechanic. Crouching adds this whole nother level of gameplay to it. Now, when you approach a section, you can be like, okay, do I want to stealth this and conserve ammo? Or do I just want to blitz through the whole thing, killing everyone in sight? It's a nice change of pace to where now I can do a stealth-only run of Resident Evil 4 if I want to. That is awesome. And the knife mechanic. Being able to parry enemies' attacks for that perfect parry and then go in for the knife kill is fucking awesome. And the way they balanced it is really well done. Just like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, your knife has durability. So when it breaks, it breaks. You have to get it repaired at the merchant, which is a good is a good counter. Instead of having to find a knife like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, you just get it repaired. It's a good counterbalance. The things they added really fit this game well, and it makes it feel like a much smoother and modern experience. The story has not changed a lot, but they did cut content. Not as much as Resident Evil 3 Remake, which cut out nearly about 80% of the fucking game, but what they did cut out doesn't really feel missed in this remake. In fact, they chose to cut the content to expand upon certain things in the Resident Evil 4 game. And expanded moments actually feel a lot better to me. For instance, the lake segment is now expanded upon. So it's not merely used as just a backdrop for a boss fight. You can now actually explore the lake on your boat and look for additional treasures and puzzles. It makes it feel bigger, like a bigger game. And it's done very, very well. The story is very much the same, so if you love the story of Resident Evil 4, you're going to like this. And of course, they added more scenes, they added more segments, so you're going to get more out of the experience than what you would have in the original game. But that's not really a bad thing because the original game is still great. The tone change is where I'm going to see a lot of RE4 fans torn between. Now, this game is going for a more serious approach, while Resident Evil 4 Original was more of like a action movie where it had a bunch of one-liners and a goofy tone while also balancing the very action and serious tone. This game does have that goofy tone, but it's not as prominent as it was in the original Resident Evil 4. So if you're going into this remake thinking you're going to get over-the-top camp, you're not going to get that here. In fact, they did cut out some of the one-liners Leon does say, but they are now references in the achievements list, where if you get an achievement, some of the one-liners are there. So they're there to just as achievements, but this game is going for a more grounded and more serious approach than the original game, which, I do like. I do like the tone of this game more than the original, which hopefully not a lot of people get mad at me for that, but I did enjoy it more in terms of the tone than the original. But as this game is concerned, I enjoyed this remake more than the original game. I know a lot of Resident Evil 4 fans are going to get mad at me, and that's fine. That is probably a hot take. I love this remake more than the original. I think this remake expanded on a lot of things and made things a lot better compared to the original game. Do I still think the original Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece? Of course. It pushed the franchise forward in big ways, and nothing's going to take that away from it. But the Resident Evil 4 remake, to me, is a perfect Resident Evil game, and is a perfect remake to a perfect Resident Evil game as well. I loved the Resident Evil 4 remake. It is going to have my Game of the Year contenders list, no doubt. It's going to be there. It's definitely going to be there. Capcom knocked it out of the park. They did a great job with this remake, and I cannot wait to see what other remakes they do and the future Resident Evil installments that they come out with. I urge everybody to go out and pick this game up. I am giving Resident Evil 4 Remake a 10 out of 10. I could not find nothing wrong with the game whatsoever. No crashes, no bugs on my end, so it's stable as hell. Capcom, pat yourselves on the back because you did a great job and redeemed yourself for the shitty Resident Evil 3 remake. Thank you for that. Anyways, guys, I have other reviews coming out here soon for Ghostwire Tokyo once that comes out, and Dead Island 2. So I'll talk to you guys later.